We live in a world that consistently rewards scale. There is an implicit bias that bigger, taller, and stronger represent the ultimate metrics of success. Consider Miko, a tiny mango tree growing in a dense village forest. Compared to the massive, rigid trunks surrounding him, Miko is exceedingly short, with a slight, highly flexible frame. Living in the shadows of giants takes a psychological toll. He perceives his size not as a simple physical characteristic, but as a fatal flaw, a structural failure compared to the rest of the canopy. The ecosystem around him operates on very specific performance indicators. Worth is measured by vertical height to capture the most sunlight, and sheer, unyielding trunk thickness to project stability. When an entire environment measures worth against a single, uniform ideal, it creates a psychological trap. It forces those who fall outside the norm to focus entirely on what they lack, blinding them to their own latent capabilities.
A neighboring, older banyan tree offers a different perspective, suggesting that organic growth is highly individualized. The advice is simple: be patient and let time do its work. Yet passive patience provides little comfort when you feel acutely vulnerable right now. Waiting to grow does nothing to resolve the immediate distress of living in a world optimized for giants. This raises a critical question. If an ecosystem strictly rewards being the absolute largest, what happens when a chaotic event arrives that targets and punishes that exact trait? The answer arrives in the form of a violent storm. Extreme weather acts as the great equalizer, rewriting the rules of the environment in an instant. Under high wind conditions, the primary advantage of tall trees, their massive height, becomes an acute mechanical liability. This diagram shows the surface area penalty. A massive, rigid canopy acts like a sail, catching high-speed winds and multiplying the destructive kinetic force. A thermal stress map reveals this energy directing downward, forcing a single critical fracture point to snap. By optimizing entirely for perfect sunny conditions, the giants engineered their own catastrophic vulnerabilities for the moment the system introduced chaos. Down on the forest floor, the storm reaches peak intensity. Miko is terrified, convinced his small frame is about to be destroyed. But his physical response to the trauma diverges completely from the giants. Rather than bracing rigidly against the wind, his slender branches instinctively yield and bow. Here, airflow dynamics illustrate the fluid mechanics of his survival. Bending into a parabolic shape allows high-velocity wind vectors to flow smoothly around him with zero drag. Comparing this zero-stress model to the giant's shattered base reveals how yielding bypasses the surface area penalty entirely. What Miko perceived as a physical flaw was actually an evolved, highly efficient defense mechanism against sudden, systemic shock. When the violent storm finally clears, the immediate threat passes, and the surrounding environment resets to a state of calm. Surviving extreme stress is only half of the evolutionary equation. To truly thrive within an ecosystem, an organism must provide distinct, usable value, a concept known as ecological utility. This utility becomes obvious when a little girl wanders into the forest. She bypasses the towering survivors entirely, seeking out Miko's accessible, low-hanging branches for climbing, and his perfectly scaled canopy for shade. Miko's exact physical proportions allow for a highly intimate, symbiotic relationship with the human environment. It is a specific utility that towering giants are physically incapable of providing. This creates a profound shift in perspective for Miko. His short stature proves to be incredibly versatile, acting as an aerodynamic shield during moments of trauma and a welcoming magnet during periods of peace. The banyan tree's advice to let time do its work is validated by the observable evidence. Highly specialized environments will always require and reward completely different traits. This natural principle maps directly onto human sociology. We tend to measure our worth by the standardized, rigid metrics established by the towering figures in our own lives and industries. True resilience comes from owning your exact proportions. In an unpredictable world, what you perceive as a weakness is often a highly specialized strength, waiting for the right storm or the perfect sunny day to prove its immense worth.